it's Reagan, and today I'm here to do my November book haul, and this video is being sponsored in part by Simon & Schuster and Harlequin Teen. Now, for the month of November, I think I have a pretty dang good stack of books here. I'm really excited about all of them. There were some really great new releases that came out this month, so without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right in. So the first book I am going to talk about is the Perustopia Book Club pick of the month for the month of November, and that is The Empress by S.J. Kincaid. I have already read and reviewed this book, which I'll leave linked down below, but this is the sequel to The Diabolic. The Diabolic is a YA science fiction like space opera and follows our main character Nemesis, who was crafted basically for the sole purpose of protecting whoever she was crafted for. She is a killer and she has killer instincts, and she is intense. You just don't want to mess with Nemesis. In the first novel, to protect the one she loves most, she actually has to impersonate them in the galactic court. There, Nemesis gets wrapped up in all sorts of political intrigue, and basically like a lot of crazy stuff goes down. This is the sequel to that. It's super good. This book takes off right where the first one finishes, and it was so good. And like I said, I have a non-spoiler review, which I'll leave linked down below. The next book I'm going to talk about is one of my most anticipated books of the year, and that is Witchwood by Tahara Mafi. This is the sequel to Furthermore, which I read and reviewed last year, and I loved. This is Tahara Mafi's middle grade story, and this follows our main character who lives in an incredibly vibrant and colorful world full of magic, but she unfortunately herself doesn't have any magic. And at the beginning of the first novel, her father mysteriously goes missing, and she goes on an adventure with her greatest nemesis to save her father. This book world is just so delightful and whimsical and has such creativity, to put it simply, and I absolutely love it. You guys know I'm a huge fan of middle grade, and I flew through the first one. Cannot wait to dive into this sequel. Oh, I'm so excited. The next novel is another highly anticipated book, and that is The Book of Dust by Philip Pullman. Now, this is the same author who wrote The Golden Compass, and this is an extension of that series. Some of you may not know this, but The Golden Compass was one of my favorite book series growing up. I read them when I was a kid, and I loved them so much. It was oddly the book series I read directly after reading the first Twilight book. Those series are very, very different from one another, but nonetheless, I loved it. And this is an extension of that series. In my understanding, I believe these novels are going to be like prequels, but also sequels to the Golden Compass trilogy, meaning like they're going to be taking place before and also after. And I also believe they're all part of the same series. It's not so much supposed, he doesn't like the word sequel or prequel, but it's kind of hard to describe it otherwise. I'm honestly torn with this novel, meaning I'm not quite sure if I should reread the original trilogy before jumping into this, but I also just like really want to read this. If anyone knows the proper course of action, please let me know down below. But nonetheless, I'm so excited to have this book in my hand. The next novel I have to show off is The Silent Fountain by Victoria Fox. Now, this is a kind of like time travel-esque novel. We follow two main characters that exist in two different time periods. Our first main character is Vivian, and she is a Hollywood film star in 1978. In the beginning of her arc, she is just married an Italian film star, Giovanni Morietti, and it seems like her fortunes is finally like turning over a new leaf until she meets his sister and begins to learn all sorts of things from his dark past. And our other main character, Lucy, is set in present day and in Tuscany, and she just wants to disappear, but the secluded Italian villa that she chose to reside at isn't quite what she expected. In fact, she keeps hearing things in the attic. These two women are like living out different lives, but their lives like come together in this one Italian villa, which sounds really, really cool. I always really love when like two lives are paralleled, but they're somehow connected even through time. But yeah, this sounds really, really great. Excited to have it to my collection. The next book I have this month to show off was the book I got in my November Owl Crate, and that is The Glass Spare by Lauren DeStefano. This is a dark YA fantasy novel following our main character, who is the fourth child and only daughter to a kind of a ruthless king. She is kind of always been kept in the shadows and trained as a spy for her father, until one day she kind of discovers that she has an ability, and that ability is that she can turn people into gemstones via touch, which is intense. That kind of sends her down this like dark path path and she meets like a mysterious prince. I'm not quite sure more than that. It just sounds really good. I love dark YA fantasy, and I love this spin on, you know, the gold, turning people into gold touch with the gemstone touch. And I love a good spy novel full of political intrigue as well. And I'm running low on YA fantasy, it feels like. So excited to have this. Next up is the book I got in my Owl Creek Jr. and oh, it sounds so good. And that is Nevermore by Jessica Townsend. This book sounds so right up my alley. This follows our main character Morgan Crow, who is basically blamed for any bad thing that befalls anyone that she lives around. She is viewed as cursed, so if anyone gets hurt, becomes ill, she's blamed for it. And she's especially blamed for her own curse that states that she will die at midnight on her 11th birthday. However, her life is changed forever when a man named Jupiter North kind of like comes into town being chased by hunters and then whisks her away to a new place called Nevermore. There she takes part in a bunch of different trials to become a part of a secret society. I love middle grade novels that are centered around competition and trials. That combined with this sort of bad luck element really appeals to me. And it, like, the cover itself is so whimsical. Everyone has umbrellas. I don't know. I just really want to read this. Next up is a very exciting novel, and that is Artemis by Andy Weir. Andy Weir is the author who wrote The Martian, which is a fantastic book, one of my favorite books, and this is another space novel written by him. I honestly haven't even read the description of this. I just saw space, Andy Weir, new book. I was like, okay, interested. This book sounds so cool. It follows our main character Jazz, who basically just wants to get rich, and not like eccentric billionaire crazy rich, just enough to be able to pay off her debts and move out of her really small apartment. She lives on a lunar colony and essentially seizes her chance to kind of become a criminal mastermind. And honestly, I stopped reading there. I'm interested to see what kind of space piracy is going to be happening in this book. Andy Weir is such a great author. He writes wonderful science fiction that has a really heavy element of science, but in a really approachable way. That combined with his humor, I just have really high expectations for this, and I can't wait to read it really soon. The next book I got is The Future Home of Living God by Louise Eldridge, and this sounds intense. To put it simply, this is a dystopian thriller set in our world and not very far in the future. In fact, it's supposed to feel very similar to our world, and essentially, let me just read this. Evolution stops as mysteriously as it began. Pregnancy and childbearing quickly become issues of state security. So this is a world where birth, pregnancy become incredibly regulated, and the political system begins to fall apart, the state begins to war, and it's just a dystopian thriller. And I honestly don't want to know much more than that, as this is a thriller-based novel. I try to avoid reading too deeply in the synopsis so I can be surprised and shocked and have a good time. And moving into the last 4 books I have to show off this month, and they are all from Book Outlet. As you guys know, I have a Book Outlet page, which I'll leave linked down below. But this month I scored some really good stuff from Book Outlet. The first one is Everyone Brave is Forgiven, and this is a World War II historical fiction novel. I love World War II historical fiction novels, and I've heard really great things about this one. This follows 2 main characters. The first one is Mary North, and right when war is declared, she goes straight to the War Office to sign up to be a spy. However, they make her a teacher. This unexpected profession turns into something where she wants to protect kind of the children that are forgotten during this war. And we also follow our main character, Tom Shaw, who's absolutely in love with Mary. However, when Mary meets his roommate who just enlists, they fall in love. All 3 of these characters' lives begin to mix in this time period of war, and it sounds really, really good. Again, I mentioned before how much I love World War II fiction. This is set in England, and it just sounds really incredible, so I had to pick it up. The next book I picked up was a novel that I feel like rocked the world last year. I heard really good things about it, and I saw it for a great price, so I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. And that is Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinbrow. Now, this is a thriller novel, and I purposely did not want to read anything about it because this is a novel where people are like, yes, it's a thriller, it's not a conventional thriller, apparently there's a twist that will blow your mind in a way that you weren't expecting, it's crazy, it's wild, I don't know. So I decided to pick it up and see what this twist everyone is talking about, that it will apparently blow my mind in a way that I couldn't possibly be anticipating. This novel is set up like a conventional thriller without a conventional ending for a thriller, but I decided to grab it. Paperback, good price. It's also a really nice paperback. It's like floppy and tall. Like, I'm very happy with this. The next novel I picked up from Book Outlet was one I was so excited to see on there because this is a book I wanted to pick up last year, and that is All of the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Brian Greenwood. This follows our main character, Wavy, and she is the daughter of a drug dealer, and basically she realizes that she can't trust anyone, not even her own parents. It's not safe to. She struggles as a young girl to also raise her brother, who's 8 years old, and she finds a lot of solace in looking at constellations until one night stargazing causes an accident, a motorcycle accident. From there, she forms a surprising and tender relationship with one of her father's thugs, and we kind of follow her life as she moves through all of these things. It sounds really good, and it also has a very interesting setting and also characters experiencing very interesting and unique things. I've never read a novel with characters that have these types of relationships. I've heard incredible things about this. I think this is one of the top books of last year or something. So again, when I saw it for a good price, I was like, last book I have to show you guys just looks so good, and it is The Queen of Blood by Sarah Beth Durst. Now, this is a book that I've had my eye on for a long time, so when I saw it, I was like, finally, it's happening. This is the first book to a fantasy series, and I could not be more excited to pick this up. I honestly only know a little bit about the synopsis, and I'm purposely keeping it that way, but I'll tell you what I know. Basically, this is about two characters, an idealistic young student and a banished warrior who have to team up to save their world, and it sounds so good. Apparently it's full of political intrigue and magic and violence and war, and those are all of my favorite things to read always. So I cannot wait to pick this up. I feel like this is definitely going to be a soon to be read book on my bookshelf for sure. Alrighty guys, that is my November book haul. Let me know down below which book you think I should pick up first or soonest, as I would love to know, and I'll see you guys soon with another video soon. Goodbye!